When someone dies today, a quiet machine takes over. There are people whose whole profession is death. They arrive, they carry the body away, they handle what must be handled in rooms you will never see. There are forms to sign, a place already set aside in the ground or the flame, a service with an order to it. You are grieving, yes, but you are rarely alone with the raw fact of the body itself. The hardest, strangest parts are managed for you, out of sight, by a system built over thousands of years precisely so that you do not have to face them directly. Now take that entire system away, every part of it. You are a human being far back in time, and someone you have known your whole life, someone you ate beside, slept near, loved, has just stopped. Their body is here, in front of you, and there is no one to call, no one to carry them away, no room to take them to. There is only your group, and the cooling body of someone who was, an hour ago, one of you, and you are facing a question that no animal before your kind had ever truly faced. Not just what is death, but what do we do with the one it has taken? This is one of the oldest and most revealing questions in the entire human story, because the way a creature treats its dead tells you almost everything about what is going on inside its mind. And the moment our ancestors began to do something with their dead, anything beyond simply walking away, they crossed a line that may be one of the truest markers of becoming human at all. Because here is the thing, no other animal really does this. When an animal dies, the others move on. There may be a pause, a sniff, a moment of what looks like confusion, and then the group simply leaves. The body becomes part of the landscape. For most of life on Earth, that is what death is, an ending and then nothing. So the first astonishing fact is not how ancient humans buried their dead, it is that, at some point, they refused to just walk away. And they refused a very, very long time ago, deep in the caves of South Africa. In a chamber so hard to reach that getting to it is dangerous even today, researchers found the bones of many individuals of an ancient human relative, gathered in a place they could only have been deliberately carried to. The discovery is still fiercely debated, but the possibility it raises is staggering, that even these distant cousins of ours, with brains far smaller than yours, may have been carrying their dead to a chosen place rather than leaving them where they fell. The impulse to do something with the dead may be older and deeper than anyone expected, but carrying a body somewhere is one thing, burying it with care is another. And that is where the evidence becomes unmistakably moving. Tens of thousands of years ago, our ancestors and our Neanderthal cousins were not just disposing of their dead, they were laying them down. At sites across Europe and the Middle East, archaeologists find bodies placed deliberately in the ground, often curled on their sides as though sleeping, sometimes arranged in a particular position, sometimes set into a pit dug for the purpose. You do not dig a grave and arrange a body gently within it if death means nothing to you. The care in the placing is the message. It says, this one mattered, and we did not want to simply leave them. And then comes the detail that closes the case entirely. The things placed with the dead. In graves across the ancient world, the body is not alone. There are objects, tools, beads, ornaments, and in some remarkable cases, flowers and offerings of food. So think about what an object in a grave actually means. A tool left with the dead is a tool the living have chosen not to keep, given up to someone who can no longer use it in any practical sense. That single act carries an enormous idea inside it, the sense that the dead person somehow still has a journey ahead, still might need what we are giving them. The grave goods are not decoration. They may be the oldest physical evidence we have of human beings believing in something beyond the visible, the first faint trace of the idea that death is not simply the end. Now the myth worth killing, the one we reach for without thinking. We tend to assume that for ancient people, surrounded by so much death and dying so young, death must have been cheap, that they were hardened to it, that losing one of their own was just the ordinary cost of a brutal life. The graves say the exact opposite. The effort, the care, the precious objects surrendered into the earth, the chosen places, returned to again and again. None of that is the behavior of people numb to loss. It is the behavior of people who felt grief as sharply as you do, perhaps more, because the one they lost was not a distant acquaintance, but a member of a tiny group on whom their entire world depended. They were not used to death. They were devastated by it, and they did something with that devastation. And what they did points to the deepest reason humans, alone among animals, treat their dead at all. Because dealing with the dead was never really about the body. The body, in the cold practical sense, could have been left. What our ancestors were truly tending to was something the body could no longer feel, and something the living could not stop feeling. It was the grief itself. A burial does almost nothing for the person who has died. What it does, all of it, the carrying, the digging, the gentle placing, the gift left in the earth, the gathering of the group around the loss, is for the living. It is the mind's answer to a wound that has no other treatment. When someone who was woven into every day of your life suddenly is not there, the absence is unbearable in a very specific way, and humans seem to have discovered, far back in our story, that you cannot simply absorb a loss like that in silence. You have to do something with it. The ritual is the doing. It gives the formless pain a shape, a sequence, a set of actions that carry the group from the raw moment of death to the slow possibility of going on. And crucially, they did it together. Death in an ancient group was never a private grief managed alone. The whole group faced the body, shared the work of the burial, stood around the same loss. That shared facing is itself a kind of medicine, the same principle that lets a held hand dull physical pain, scaled up to a whole community holding one another through the worst thing that happens to a human being. In tending their dead together, our ancestors were also tending each other, reaffirming, in the face of the proof that any of them could vanish, that the rest were still here, still bound, still a people. So picture the full truth of it. Not a hardened animal walking away from a body the way every creature before it had. A small group of grieving people refusing to leave one of their own where they fell, carrying them to a chosen place, digging into the earth, laying them down with the care you give someone sleeping, surrendering a precious tool or a handful of flowers into the grave, in the dim hope that it might still matter to them somewhere. And around that grave, a community holding its own grief by holding each other. In those acts, repeated across hundreds of thousands of years, you can watch human beings inventing the very ideas of meaning, of the sacred, of a hope that reaches past the edge of life. So the next time death is handled for you, quietly, by the machine built to spare you its hardest parts, notice what that sparing has cost you the chance to feel. You will rarely have to face the body, dig the ground, or stand with your whole community around the raw fact of a loss. So much is managed, out of sight, by a system thousands of years in the making. That gentleness is the inheritance, built on countless generations who had no system at all, and so met death the only way they could, with their own hands and each other. Somewhere very far back, a group of people stood over one of their own and made a choice no animal had made before them. They would not simply walk away, and in refusing to leave their dead behind, they became the first creatures who truly understood that they had ever been alive.